I'm upset too. I'm upset too. Listen, what we were asking our European allies to do, Germany among others, was not to put troops on the ground in Iran, but to allow us to have flyover rights and to allow us to have refueling rights. And there's some countries in NATO that have been incredibly supportive, and there's others that have really been disappointing. And I think Germany's at the front of the list. But I think what's becoming clear here is that we got real problems in our relationship with NATO, and when the dust settles on what's going on in the Middle East, I think we're going to have a real honest conversation about what we can expect from our allies in Europe.
Spain has now refused the United States access to its airspace and airports. Italy has taken the same position. Poland has followed. The United Kingdom has mostly done the same. France has blocked the U.S. from using both its airspace and military bases. Austria and Switzerland have also joined that growing list. And now, another major development has emerged. Saudi Arabia has reportedly blocked Donald Trump and the United States from using the Riyadh airbase, along with any other Saudi military base. Not only that, Saudi Arabia has also banned the U.S. from using Saudi airspace after Trump announced his so-called Project Freedom on Sunday. Then, just one day later, Trump suddenly claimed he was ending Project Freedom because it had been extremely successful. But the real reason now appears very different. According to the reports, Project Freedom was not a success at all. It collapsed because Saudi Arabia made it clear that American forces would no longer be allowed to use Saudi airspace or Saudi bases. Now watch the part where Trump's Project Freedom story starts falling apart.
According to reports, Saudi Arabia and several Gulf allies were caught off guard after Trump announced Project Freedom over the weekend. The operation was aimed to help commercial ships safely cross the Strait of Hormuz. And it came amid rising attacks and tensions linked to the ongoing US-Iran conflict. Saudi Arabia is said to have informed Washington that it would not allow American military aircraft supporting the operation to fly from Prince Sultan Air Base.
And it was not only Saudi Arabia. Kuwait also reportedly told the United States that it could no longer use Kuwaiti air bases or airspace. That move created a domino effect across the Middle East. Countries that had once made deals with Trump, including Qatar, Bahrain, and even the UAE, began signaling that they were no longer willing to fully support his operation. The UAE tried to remain somewhat involved, but even that came at a cost. Iran reportedly attacked the port of Fujairah, a major UAE port used to bypass Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. A UAE tanker was also struck, along with a South Korean tanker, shortly after Trump announced Project Freedom. Here is where the story becomes bigger than one failed mission.
To the strong response from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, who called the President's remarks insulting and appalling, and was not surprised that they have caused such hurt. Prince Harry, who did 2 tours of Helmand, said those sacrifices deserve to be spoken of truthfully and with respect. US veterans who fought alongside NATO forces on the front line say President Trump's comments couldn't be further from the truth.
So while countries across Europe and the Middle East are shutting their airspace and bases to the United States, NATO is now preparing for a future that may not include America in the same way it once did. Whether leaders call it a new NATO or a European NATO, the message is clear. Europe is preparing for the possibility that Trump may pull the United States away from NATO entirely. NATO is also reportedly avoiding major high-level meetings until the end of Trump's term. Military officials and lower-level representatives may still meet, but when it comes to world leaders gathering together, NATO appears to be stepping back. They do not want Trump's drama. They do not want him showing up and creating chaos. Their quiet strategy seems simple: keep Trump away from NATO as much as possible. Meanwhile, Trump and his allies, including Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, and others, continue attacking NATO almost every day. Let's look at the report that turned this into a political earthquake.
An NBC report says this angered the Saudi leadership. In response, the kingdom informed the US that it would not allow American military aircraft to fly from Prince Sultan Air Base southeast of Riyadh or through Saudi airspace to support the operation. Well, Trump called Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman directly. The call did not resolve the issue, forcing the president to reportedly pause Project Freedom.
The news that Saudi Arabia and Kuwait were blocking the United States from their airspace and bases landed like a political earthquake. Trump had announced Project Freedom by claiming he would send the American Navy into the Strait of Hormuz to help tankers and cargo ships leave safely as part of a humanitarian mission. Then came that strange press conference with General Kane and Pete Hegseth. They claimed that hundreds of ships were already exiting the Strait of Hormuz and that the United States was guiding them through safe passage. But according to the criticism surrounding this situation, that simply was not true. 2 ships were reportedly destroyed by Iran after trying to move through the area. When U.S. Navy ships attempted to enter, Iran allegedly fired warning shots, and the American vessels turned back. Satellite images were said to show that the U.S. Navy was not escorting hundreds of ships at all. In reality, only 1 ship reportedly left the Strait of Hormuz, and it passed through an Iranian-controlled route because it was connected to Iran. In other words, the Strait of Hormuz remains firmly under Iranian control. This next part shows why Saudi leadership was reportedly furious.
That the U.S. military mission to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Garrett Hake joins us now with this developing news. So walk our viewers through, Garrett, what exactly is happening here?
Tom, this is a stunning reversal from the president, whose administration put not 1 but 2 cabinet secretaries out today for briefings defending this idea of Project Freedom as a key new administration priority, that the U.S. military might would be used to protect ships bottled up in the Persian Gulf since the start of this war as they transited out of the Strait of Hormuz. They did so successfully with 2 ships yesterday, but today just 1 ship passed through the strait.
Then NBC reportedly revealed that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was furious when Trump announced Project Freedom. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and other royal families in the region saw the operation as dangerous, reckless, and highly escalatory. At minimum, it created confusion. At worst, it provoked Iran into further attacks. And that is exactly what happened. Middle Eastern countries are now under enormous pressure. They were promised American protection. They made deals with Trump because they believed those deals would bring them security. They did not make those arrangements because they personally admired Trump. They did it because Trump presented American protection as something that came with personal favors, business deals, and financial benefits. Qatar gave Trump a 747 jet. Saudi Arabia was expected to do hotel deals. The UAE and Dubai were expected to make business arrangements. Money was expected to flow into Trump-linked projects, including his World Liberty Financial crypto venture. These countries believed they were buying security. But when the crisis came, they did not receive the protection they expected. Even worse, Trump allegedly did not warn them before he and Netanyahu moved forward with a catastrophic attack on Iran in late February. According to this argument, that attack set the entire Middle East on fire and caused innocent people, including children, to be killed. Now see how the region expected coordination.
Moving on now, Israel has reportedly warned the U.S. that Iran may use an ongoing military exercise as cover to launch a surprise attack on Israel. Now, according to an Axios report, which cited 3 Israeli and U.S. sources, Israeli officials have warned that the Trump administration that an Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps missile exercise could be in preparation for a strike on Israel. Now, the report said that intelligence gathered only shows force movements in Iran, but Israel has a much lower risk tolerance since Hamas's October 7th attack. The report noted that Jerusalem had issued similar warnings 6 months ago, but nothing came off of it.
But the story says something else happened. Middle Eastern leaders were reportedly stunned. They expected coordination. They expected communication. At the very least, they expected a warning before such a massive military action took place in their own region. But Trump allegedly told no one except Netanyahu. He did not inform NATO. He did not properly inform regional partners. He acted in isolation. Then the United States reportedly tried to justify the war through a State Department position paper. The argument was that Iran had been at war with Israel, a U.S. ally, for 47 years, and therefore the United States needed no further justification to act militarily in defense of Israel. Just when it looked like tensions might finally move toward a possible deal, Trump announced Project Freedom. He talked about sending Navy ships into the Strait of Hormuz and escorting vessels out of the Persian Gulf. But then military leaders tried to soften the statement. They claimed it was not a new offensive operation. They said it was defensive. They said it was humanitarian. They said the U.S. was not directly entering the Strait of Hormuz, but was only helping ships and insurance companies understand the latest updates. Then Trump and Hegseth contradicted that message by insisting this was a new mission and that America was going in. At that point, no one seemed to know what the actual plan was. Iran then reportedly attacked Fujairah port and struck the South Korean and UAE ships. Tensions exploded. Saudi Arabia responded by closing its airspace. Kuwait followed, and now they stand alongside Spain, Italy, Poland, the UK, France, Austria, and Switzerland, all of whom have restricted or blocked U.S. access in some form. This clip explains how Trump turned toward Germany instead of fixing the crisis. And how did Trump respond? Instead of strengthening the one major ally still allowing U.S. access, he turned his attention to Germany. Germany had criticized Trump's actions because of the economic damage they were causing, but it had still allowed the United States to use its base. Rather than protect that relationship, Trump threatened to pull at least 5,000 American troops out of Germany, saying that more could follow. That is not how alliances are supposed to work. Strong leaders build alliances. They do not tear them apart. Addition makes alliances stronger. Subtraction weakens them. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz responded with a powerful warning. He said the world is witnessing a historic rupture, the kind of rupture that every generation experiences only once in a lifetime. He said those born after World War II had been lucky until now, but 80 years after that war ended, the rupture had finally arrived. Germany, he said, is now rearming in the truest sense of the word and preparing to strengthen itself. Now let's see how France moved in a completely different direction. France is also moving. The French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle reportedly crossed the Suez Canal and entered the Red Sea as part of preparations for a possible Franco-British mission to protect navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. Paris made it clear that this mission would be defensive and separate from Trump's failed Project Freedom. The mission would depend on lower regional tensions and the approval of countries in the region. Unlike Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron appears to be negotiating directly. Macron reportedly spoke with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian about the Strait of Hormuz. He stressed the importance of reopening shipping lanes and encouraged Iran to consider a French-British plan for an international mission that could allow safe passage through Hormuz. Meanwhile, Trump continues playing his usual market game. He claims a deal is close. He says an agreement is almost done. Markets react. Oil prices shift. Then the truth catches up and everything reverses again. That is what some critics call Trump's two-week cycle. He has used it for years. 2 weeks for a health care plan, 2 weeks for a major deal, 2 weeks for a solution, 2 weeks for everything. Then, when the deadline arrives, he creates another distraction, moves the goalpost, and starts the cycle all over again. Trump uses chaos like a weapon. He floods the public with drama, confusion, and noise until people forget what he promised in the first place. But this time, the consequences could be massive. If the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively shut down, the world could face a serious oil crisis by mid-July. People may not want to talk about it, but the danger is real. This is where Iran and China enter the story. That is why France, the UK, and other European countries are now trying to speak directly with Iran. Their message is simple. Trump does not know what he is doing, so let us find a way forward. They are trying to offer guarantees, recognize Iran's position, and create a path towards safe shipping. Iran understands that it now has leverage. Iranian officials arrived in China before Trump's expected visit, and Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Araghchi said China believes Iran after the war is different from Iran before the war. He said Iran's international position has improved and that Iran has proven its strength and capabilities. From Iran's point of view, this is a new era. Iran believes it projected power. It believes it survived American and Israeli pressure. The United States claimed it wanted regime change, the destruction of Iran's nuclear program, the weakening of Iran's missile and drone systems, and the removal of Iran's proxies. But according to this argument, none of those goals were achieved. Iran still controls the Strait of Hormuz. Then comes the wider global picture. China is standing closer to Iran. Wang Yi reportedly said the war by the United States and Israel against Iran was illegitimate and that a complete ceasefire was essential. Aragchi thanked China for condemning the United States and called China a close friend of Iran. So while Trump prepares to meet Xi Jinping, Iran is already strengthening ties with China. Trump may think he is walking into the room as a powerful negotiator, but China is already building deeper cooperation with Iran. Finally, let's look at how Russia, Ukraine, and Zelensky show the bigger global shift. At the same time, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov reportedly called Marco Rubio. The public learned about that call from Russian media, not from the United States. This followed the same pattern as earlier calls involving Putin and Trump, where Russia released information before the U.S. did. Russia also declared a unilateral ceasefire for May 9th, calling it Victory Day. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky responded by saying that if Russia could declare a ceasefire on May 9th, Ukraine could declare one on May 5th. Russia rejected that and then reportedly increased attacks across Ukraine. After the Rubio-Lavrov call, Russia allegedly launched major missile strikes on several Ukrainian regions, including Zaporizhzhia, Kursk, Dnipro, Poltava, and Kherson. Many people were reportedly killed. The contrast is clear. Zelensky is building coalitions. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is building coalitions. European leaders are building coalitions. That is what serious leadership looks like. Carney recently attended the European Political Community Summit in Yerevan, Armenia, a symbolic location, given Armenia's history and its growing movement toward Europe. Zelensky also spoke there, helping bring together Europe, Canada, and other transatlantic partners. Zelensky is also strengthening relationships with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Ukraine has become a world leader in drone defense and anti-drone technology because of the war. These countries want that expertise, and Zelensky is using it to build real alliances. Trump, on the other hand, is tearing alliances down. He is attacking partners, isolating America, and weakening U.S. influence around the world. America First has become America Alone. And now the United States is being blocked from bases and airspace by countries that once stood close to Washington. That is why Project Freedom collapsed. Not because it was successful, but because America has become dangerously isolated under Trump's leadership. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's reach 7 million subscribers. Thank you so much for watching and have a good one. Support independent media by becoming a paid member of the channel for exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis. You can also gift memberships to others.